Hello, everyone. My name is Hady Raphael, and tonight on the show, CF Montreal finds its way back to winning ways at Stade Saputo. Which two strikers should be in the starting 11? And we'll go around and do a deep dive into the Canadian women's national team opponents ahead of the World Cup. That and a lot more on episode 140 of The Ball is Round. And here we are. We're back together, all three of us, the three musketeers. I'm joined by my friends, Yves Powell and Elias Grigoriadis. Yves, how are you today?
I am excellent on this Sunday evening. How are you?
I'm fine. Elias, you're back with us.
Finally,
Thanks,
yes.
thanks for not ditching us again. No, I'm joking.
I missed 1 week and it's felt like a million years, so it's nice to be back.
We have a lot to go through today, like really a lot. Of course, let's start with CF Montreal, a very important game yesterday where CF Montreal had Charlotte FC as an opponent at Stade Saputo. Unfortunately, CF Montreal was in a very bad streak with 2 losses at home and, of course, a very heavy loss in Chicago, 3-0 loss. And we're expecting to go back to winning ways yesterday against one of the teams they're fighting against for a playoff spot. Right away, let's look at the starting 11 that Hernan Losada has chosen for that game. So we had Jonathan Sirois in goal. As center backs, we had Joel Waterman, Rudy Camacho, Gabriele Corbo. As a right wing back, the return of Aaron Herrera. As a left wing back, Ariel Lassiter. In the middle of the pitch, as a double pivot, we had Mathieu Chouanière and Samuel Piette. Up front, as a number 10, Bryce Duke. And the 2 strikers chosen by Losada were Shinanso Ofor and Mahala Opoku. When you look at that lineup, first look at the lineup, Elias, what did you think of it?
It was nice to see Samuel Piette's name. That was my immediate reaction. I wasn't too surprised, especially with the fact that Samuel Piette is there now. Wanyama can get a bit more time off. And I think that, other than that, I wasn't really too surprised by anything. Aaron Herrera obviously taking a spot as starter back now that he's got some time to rest after the Gold Cup. And everything, my other guess was that they're going to try and find a partner for Opoku. So my guess is that, we'll talk about this later, but Hernan Losada is going to cycle through the forwards to see who meshes best with him and go from there.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at that, Yves, you look at that starting 11, you look at the 3 in the back, the right backs, the left back. Do you like what you saw? Of course, we talked a bit of the midfield, but like the back 5, is that the best back 5 that Hernan Losada has?
I liked it myself. Obviously, I think I think we're pretty settled on, say, our right center back and our middle center back for sure. Left center back has been a little bit of a revolving door, but Gabriele Corbo has done a really great job when he's filled in there, especially after a few less than conclusive performances from George Campbell. Right wing back, Aaron Herrera, obviously it's been a little while for him. But he was obviously the de facto starter. And left wing back, again, I think we're a little bit of like not a square peg into a round hole, but like maybe a dodecadagonal peg into a round hole. So it's like a lot closer to a circle with Ariel Lassiter. But he certainly has the appropriate work rate, attacking verve, and crossing ability to work his way into that position. So I'm going to make that a very long segue into me, I'm never going to throw my hat in completely, a tentative yes.
Okay. As usual, it's very hard for Yves to be very, very positive. Like, she tries, but yeah, sometimes it fails. But today it kind of worked. Um,
Ta-da.
so the game started right away. You know what? I was looking for. I always look for positives in games. Of course, when we play bad, but also when we play very well, like we played yesterday. Of course, we won 2-0. I look for negatives, and the only negative that I found about yesterday and is when the game started, and it happened a couple of times during the game, defending set pieces. What's
Mm-hmm.
going on? Because there was a mini scare at the beginning of the game, maybe in the first minute or so. What's going on with defending set pieces? We were so good last year. Do you feel that unfortunately there's something that's off, Eve, or do you feel that it's only my imagination?
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't think it was a huge concern for. It was definitely a concern, I would say, early in the season when they were going through that really rough patch. But let's face it, everything was a concern then, right? Um, and then when they went through their stretch where they very much righted the ship and obviously got all those clean sheet wins at home and all that good stuff, it seemed as though the team had kind of nailed down defending set pieces, whether it's a free kick or whether it's a corner. But you're right. I think as well we noticed it in even their game in Chicago. I think obviously Jordan Scary certainly scored a free kick that was excellent, and that I don't think was necessarily savable. But yeah, I agree with you. The organization seems to have kind of lapsed a little bit from say after several weeks into the season.
Elias, I know that you coach at the youth level, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. What kind of the defense would you like? Would you like on defending set pieces? Do you go zonal? Is it man to man? What do you prefer between the two?
Well, it really all depends on how your defenders operate, right? If you're defenders that can dominate every facet of a set piece, then you can kind of impose your defense on the team and then make them work their offense around the way you defend. That's not really the case for Montreal, where they have to now kind of adapt to how other teams like to run their set pieces. Do they like a lot of movement? Do they rather have a bit of trickery? So Montreal kind of is forced to play it from game to game, which kind of leads into the fact that they don't have this kind of telepathic defense on set pieces where you just everybody knows where everybody is and you almost have to like you don't have to say anything to organize yourselves. And that's kind of what we've seen, not just against Charlotte, but in recent games where you get a set piece and you're kind of like single bead of sweat starts to form and stuff like that happens. So it really does have to become a very very focused point for Losada, because defending in general, their defending now in their own half has gone much better when they're allowing possession and they have to defend for longer stretches. It's become much better since the beginning of the season, but the set pieces have kind of stayed the same. So I think that's the next big project for them with regards to what's next in improving the defense is definitely set pieces, because
Mhm.
it doesn't exude any kind of confidence.
Yeah, I agree with what Eve said a bit earlier, saying that we have the best defense that Fernando Zara could have with the roster that he has. But we have to admit that adding a George Campbell on set pieces is so important. When George Campbell
Mhm.
is here, the aerial abilities that he has and his heading abilities and his timing are really good defending set pieces, and that's the only thing that I like from George Campbell. And I think that he's it's not true. I like a lot of things from George Campbell, but what I'm saying is, for me, that's the only reason why I would choose George Campbell over one of the three that were chosen yesterday.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't think it's a big concern as Eve said, but I think as you said, Elias, that's the next thing to work on for Hernan Losada whenever is healthy, if it ever
Mhm.
happens. Um, Now, there was, of course, the first few minutes were very intense. CF Montreal dominated those first few minutes, creating a lot of half chances, but also chances with that great build up play between Bryce Duke and Hernan and Ayala Lassiter. was going to say Hernan Losada. Yeah, so Ariel Lassiter having the ball on the left flank, just sending a through ball to Bryce Duke in the area. Bryce Duke back healing it back to Ariel Lassiter, who tried to curl it directly on the floor. Unfortunately, it was saved by the goalkeeper. Looking at that, that was a kind of
it was a really good
play,
chance,
right?
Yeah, no, it was. And it's really funny because, of course, I know the Holy Gale very well, and the Holy Gale is very much anti-back heel, and I. So when I saw that she was the first person I thought of, because when the back heel doesn't come off, the player kind of looks like an idiot, right? But then the how does but then when it does come off, it looks so brilliant and fluid, and like everyone's on the same page, and all of a sudden they're going to make team of the week and all that. So it's a very double-edged sword, that infamous back heel.
Yeah, and Elias, I think that even the shot of Ariel Lassiter, yeah, it was a great save from the Charlotte goalkeeper. Like, I think the shot was really perfect too.
Mhm.
Like, there's nothing when you look at that play, it was a perfect play, but it was also a perfect stop from the goalkeeper, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Besides, maybe putting it like top bins, you can't really ask more of that, right? Because whenever you put it low and going side netting, it's never an easy save. So that's more credit to the Charlotte keeper than anything. And it was nice to see Bryce Duke showing that little bit of confidence, right? Because confidence for him, I feel like confidence manifests in the little things he does, right? If he takes somebody on, if he puts a little flair on a pass, or if he does a back heel, so it's little things like that show me that he's like he's starting to feel himself, and having that kind of Bryce Duke compared to one that we've had throughout the season that's been a bit lacking in just that and confidence is nice to
Mhm.
see. So yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean that combo, you could tell that they've played together for more than just half a season. They've definitely run that play more than once. So that was nice.
Yeah. So Holy Gale says 1% success rate for the back heel. You're right. It's very rare that it works, but it did work.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about Bryce Duke, because we're not going to go play by play. We're just going to talk about, have multiple discussions around the game and what happened during the game. Bryce Duke, I can't rate him in a certain way. Sometimes
Okay.
he's so good in certain build-up plays, and sometimes for me he's really really bad. And and during the game yesterday, for me, when I look at key plays, that first play at first, and of course we'll talk about the first goal also, where he was very important.
Hmm.
The rest of the game, his decision making was really subpar. He lacks, for me, acceleration. He's really not fast. He doesn't have pace, and his decision making most of the time. At one point, there were, I think, 3 against 3, and he just stopped the play and waited for everybody to come back, and I couldn't
Hmm.
understand that. What do you think about Bryce Duke, Elias? Do you think that we have a gem of a player, or do we have an average player that has sometimes very bright flashes in a certain way?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could see Chan's comment in the chat. It kind of hits the nail on the head for me, at least, where it said Duke is still super young and raw. You need the patience with him. I think that with someone like Bryce Duke, we kind of forget the fact that he is just 22 years old and he's only had what, like 3 months with the team. So I think he was brought into the club at this time where there was a lot of injuries. The club was not doing well, and everyone saw Bryce Duke as like this messianic figure that he's going to come back and fix all the problems, right? So I think that maybe he's taking a little bit of that on himself and is kind of thinking that he has
Hmm.
to do all of it, and he tries to do too much. And kind of like in that fast break, in that counter attack where it was 3-on-3, and he kind of just, I think he was maybe just like not overwhelmed, but just there was too many things that he wanted to do, and he kind of just said, I have to stop, right? And I think it's all about kind of maybe getting it back to basics and letting him breathe a little bit, which is why I like I like seeing him play a bit deeper, where he's not, the focal point. He's not the 10 that has to turn and either shoot or make the decisive pass, and he can kind of stay a bit further back, play with the ball, play with Wanyama, Shwanya, and maybe just settle into the game a bit more. But I just think that time and patience, especially with how many young people are on this team, and let them grow as a unit.
Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I think he needs maybe a bit of work in the gym to work on his lower body in a certain way, and then to maybe get that acceleration. And sometimes I feel he's too slow. It's not about being young or anything. Is he too
Yeah.
frail? Am I wrong?
Well, people
Like
said the
he
same thing
seems
about
Ah,
Monsieur Chouanier, right?
that was
People said the same thing
about
about
to
Monsieur
come out of
Chouanier.
my mouth.
nice, nice. Yeah. So go
He has
ahead.
to
Go
go
ahead.
into it, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, Mathieu Chouanier, he definitely got kind of beat up, for want of a better word, tossed around by other players in the league when he really in his first couple of seasons with Montreal. But obviously now he can stand up to anybody. So it is. I don't think that would hurt Bryce Duke's game in any regard. Obviously, decision making, is not necessarily, I don't think, something that you work on in the gym.
No, no, no. Decision
Unless
making
there's
is
some sort
something
of
else.
zen that comes with it, well, your endorphins release and all that.
I didn't
I
talk
don't
about
know.
decision making in the gym either, but
No.
yeah. No, we'll see. I think as Chan said and you said, Elias, yes, he's still very young. Let's wait and see how he develops. It's just we see him so much often in the starting 11, and we see that in a sort of redundant way where he's sometimes you're like, oh, just run, and and he can't, and it drives me crazy sometimes. But of course, he'll learn. He's gonna have to progress,
Mm-hmm.
not only with match experience, but also being a first team regular. You need to do that extra step every time. So let's hope we'll see a finished product very soon from Bryce Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about that first goal because a lot of chances happened in the beginning, and there was you know, um, Eve, you were in my head, and I was
Oh
hearing
no!
Eve's. I was hearing Eve.
Oh,
We're never
that's
gonna
not good.
score. We're never gonna score. We're gonna concede a goal at the 90th minute, and it's the whole new scenario. And I'm gonna go on the ball this round, and I'm gonna have to listen to
They're
Eve
not
pessimism
Toronto.
again. But no, thank God this didn't happen. That first goal. Let's talk about the whole play because it's so important. First of all,
Yeah.
Samuel Piet really recuperating and winning the ball in the midfield, giving it to Aaron Herrera. Aaron Herrera moving the ball forward, and that that's I don't know that nutmeg. I don't know how you can call it. He just made sure that the defender was completely lost before
Yeah.
sending a through ball to Bryce Duke on the right hand side. Bryce Duke getting to the ball and crossing at the first post for Shinonso Ford. Shinonso Ford trying to deflect the ball in the middle, in the back of the net. It was saved by the goalkeeper. Came back to, of course, our friend Mahala Poku, who scored his first goal for CF
Yeah.
Montreal, and of course, on home soil. How can we describe the feeling of the fans when
Oh my
a
gosh.
player is introduced
Hmm.
for his first game and gets his first goal? How, like, do you directly fall in love with the player, Eve?
I think you have to a little bit, right? And like, do you remember, for example, do you remember Lassie's debut with Montreal when he
Oh
scored a
yeah,
brace? Yeah.
Lassie on
And
fire, and I
oh
was like,
yeah, the
guys,
flying
just wait,
fin.
just wait,
Oh, we
just
were all
wait.
like, we were all losing our little heads over it. Yeah, no, I think you absolutely have to. And all the more so because Montreal fans had just been starved for goals in the recent matches, right? So it was like whoever was going to break that drought was going to be so appreciated all the more. And so for it to be a player who was making his debut on top of everything, I think was really just the cherry on the Sunday, if you will. It was just you couldn't have asked for a better debut. You couldn't have written it better in a movie.
Yeah, exactly. And Elias, how important was the run of Shinonso 4? Because we, Shinonso 4 has been really criticized on social media, and, with reason, for not scoring goals, for not being decisive and everything. But when we look at his work rate on the pitch, it's so important. And that run on the first post is exactly what made this goal happen. And is exactly the reason why this goal happened, no?
Yeah, and it's something that Montreal kind of avoided doing during this goalless drought is putting the ball in dangerous places. Because you put the ball
Hmm.
in scary situations for the defense, you ask the defense questions and good things will happen. And Montreal seemed like they just did not want to risk putting the ball in a dangerous situation. They wanted to make everything perfect, and then nothing was perfect. So, we talked about what Ofor lacks, but one of the things that we always talk about Ofor does very well is his movement off the ball, and he dragged like three defenders into that area, right? So when Duke crossed in with that much pace, chaos was bound to happen, and there Montreal was fortunate, but it's you make your own luck at some point, and you put the ball into these scary spots that make the defense a little bit unnerved, especially a team that has struggled like Charlotte, and good things are bound to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Losada really like drilled home the idea of if you're getting the chance, if you don't have a clear pass, put the ball in a scary spot, and something eventually is going to happen, right? Because there's only so long you can go without scoring a goal,
Law of
and
averages.
exactly, it's bound to catch up with you. So yeah, I mean, 04 big body, very imposing in the box. You put him in the right spot, and people are bound to follow, and chaos is bound to ensue, and that's exactly what happened. So came off perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Now you look at that first goal. Also, we talked about the fan experience scoring when that goal is scored. What about the players' experience, Eve? Like, I'm
Couldn't have.
sure Mahala Opoku should be like is in heaven right now.
I'm sure he is. I don't think, a player can ask for a better debut. Obviously, coming from LAFC to Montreal, he was coming from a team that had, a pretty successful last season.
Yeah,
You
And,
think?
making the CCL final this year as well is obviously, I think, even if you don't win, it's still certainly a feather in your cap to be part of that experience. So undoubtedly coming to Montreal is a little bit of a shock, not just the culture shock of moving from LA to Montreal, but just, the overall shock of how things are. It's different than there. And what better way to make yourself feel at home, right, than by having the 18 odd thousand fans who were there last night chanting your name after you finally score a goal for a stadium that was just thirsting for goals so bad. So I can't imagine it. And obviously, hopefully, that's going to be a huge boost to his confidence as well going forward in future matches.
Yeah, hopefully, and let's raise our glass to the 1642 with their
Oh my
their very
God. Their
interesting animation with the
arrows
arrows, pointing to the goal, saying, you should score here.
had to be done.
They had it had to be done. We always talk about, whenever we see a nice animation from either the collectif or the 1642, we always mention it here on the Ball is Round, and this was very interesting. And you know what? It seems that the CF Montreal players, took that to heart, because not even a minute later, Joel Waterman tried to clear the ball. He cleared the ball as far as he could in the middle of the pitch. Who came running? Chinonso 4, even after missing, and we have to specify that, even after missing his first touch and not controlling the ball very well, still
Mm-hmm.
managed to put the ball in the back of the net for the 2-0 for CF Montreal. Again, we talked about Shinon Sofor and how important he was in the first goal. He scores the second goal. Is it, Elias, one of his best game with CF Montreal since he joined, or do we have to remember his game against Toronto? That was really good also.
yeah. I was going to say the first game that really comes to mind when I say like this is the ceiling for Chinonzo 4 is this game in Toronto. It's exactly what you want from him, and I think that if he could make that his standard, then that's an incredible output. Even slightly below that would be a very solid output for what I mean, expectations now are relatively low. But again, this game against Charlotte, if games like this, games like Toronto can be maybe not every game, but every other game, then I think that people warm up to maybe his lack of technical ability a whole lot more because he affects the game and he finds his own way to make his own impact on the game. And uh, even if that first touch wasn't great, he still had kind of the wherewithal and the composure to notice that the keeper's coming out to maybe just coolly put it into the bottom corner. So instead of you mess up your first touch, you start to panic and you kind of just slash
Mm-hmm.
at it and it goes wide or whatever. He saw he messed up the first touch and he kind of just like gathered himself and just said, okay, next one is gonna be fine. And then he made it count. So yeah, I mean this. I think Hernando Sada's job now is to be like, this is your standard. This is what is expected of you every time you get on the field, every time you start. Because when he comes off the bench, it's different. But when he has to navigate the beginning of the game and the tempo and the ebbs and flows, like this is the level that is needed.
Apart from Chironzo Fora, Eve, let's talk about that midfield. Samuel Piet, Mathieu Chouanière. How important are they for the CF Montreal? Knowing we have Victor Wanyama on the bench, we have
Yeah.
a very good youngster with Nathan Saliba. We have some good players that can be and play in that role. But those two have made the midfield theirs yesterday. It feels no.
Very much, yeah, very much. And you mentioned Nathan Saliba, and I was like, I think it's too early, kind of, to mention him in the same breath as the other players. Like, let's face it, it's his first proper pro season, right? So I think it's like a little bit early. Although, like he is coming along, certainly. But as for the impact of Samuel Piet and Mathieu Chouanière yesterday, I mean, it was like, it felt like whatever had been lacking, like that sort of magic, if you will, that little spark that had been lacking in the past several games was back. And that was probably more Mathieu Chouanière, obviously, than Samuel Piet, I'd be inclined to say, because of course Samuel Piet's role is a little more reserved. But all the same, seeing Samuel Piet, he has definitely like taken on another dimension to his game from the Samuel Piet we first knew, as far as his passing. But that being said, having him back as well, honest to goodness, like, I think having him gone for so long made me appreciate what he brings so much more with his ball winning ability, the distribution. I think that has really come even now, so many years into his time with Montreal. It was, yeah, it was, for me, I was like, oh, this feels so much better to watch this team play with these guys out there.
I've always praised Samuel Piet, and whenever he played well, and I've always been very fair when he didn't play well. But I think that yesterday he was the man of the match. It's as simple as that. He was so good recuperating the ball and also, giving that creating space by giving passes, on the right, on the
Mm-hmm.
left, and adding that fluidity in the midfield. He was he was like the he was
He was like the
orchestrating.
glue.
He was
Yeah.
orchestrating everything. He
Yes. Yeah,
was
very much
doing
so.
everything, and I look at the end of the first half. I looked at my fellow journalist in the press box, and I looked at them, and I'm like, this game is Samuel Piet's, and everybody looked at me and was like, even journalists that usually do never agree with me agreed with me this day. And no, he was so interesting, I
Yeah.
think, during that first half. And I think that we miss him. We miss Samuel Piet
Yeah.
so much. um, we tend to forget how good he is for that team and how important he is for that team, and he showed it yesterday. Elias, I don't know. I feel that you had something to add on Samuel Piet, or
Yeah, just
yeah,
small, like it made me realize how well he would have done under Losada because again he left right when they hit rock bottom, right? That's when he got injured in
Yeah.
Vancouver, and we hadn't really seen Losada ball, right, quote unquote, yet. and we hadn't seen everybody kind of getting with the system and familiarizing themselves with the style of play. So now that he's there, again, you kind of see the difference between him and Wanyama, where Wanyama likes to win the ball and then settle things down. Piet wins the ball, and the first thing he's doing is going, okay, can I get forward now? And it kind of shows a difference in approaches a lot of the time. And Piet, and it showed on that goal where, Piet won the ball and instantly got forward. So I think that, it was so nice to see him back in a style that I think suits him more than Wilfried Narcisse, just because of how physically demanding and how vertical it is. And it'll be really cool to see, because I think that Wanyama does have actual competition in his spot after performance like this. And with Mathieu Chanel playing that well, then all of a sudden somebody may be the odd man out, and it's out of 100% merit. So this is going to be a very interesting duel in the midfield for minutes.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think for once, I think that Hernan Losada is going to have quality midfielders to choose from. Um, for the future games of CF Montreal with Piet, Wanyama, Chouanière. But also, I would like to add Saliba, because he brings something sometimes that's
Yes.
completely different from the others. Not saying that he's at the same level. It's just a different profile that could be very interesting, to have for a coach like Hernan Losada.
And
Now,
he could finally be
yeah,
introduced into the game as a youngster should be, instead of asking him to start every game.
exactly. Asking too much
He
of
could
him.
finally
Exactly.
be a rookie and start, and get minutes here and there and ease his way in.
Exactly. Now, of course, the second half, Hernan Losada said, we wanted to give them the ball and just, wait and see if there was any openings. There was quite a few openings, but unfortunately, uh, Hernan Losada was a bit disappointed at the end in the presser, saying we should have scored more.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way, Eve? Did we miss too many chances?
I mean, I think when you win, it's a little bit hard to say that they missed quote unquote too many. But I think probably the one that comes to mind is the Bryce Duke chance in the
Oh yeah, man.
70th minute.
Yeah.
I was
Uh,
so pissed when I when I saw. I was so pissed. I was like, "Come on, man! Come on!
oh
Like, just
yeah.
controlled it and put it in the back. Like, come on! That was easy.
I felt like it was harder to miss than to score a little
Yeah,
bit.
really, really.
That one certainly crosses my mind. Obviously, like Zach Rogiard, when he did come into the match as well, he had some interesting, I would say, moments, because he was a
Yeah,
little bit on his own. But he had some interesting moments down in that box. But I think it was so late in the game as well that you kind of couldn't fault him necessarily for not going for it. Uh, Overall, yeah, I kind of think they could have scored at least one more. Could have or should have.
yeah, I agree. Elias, let's talk about those substitutions that Hernan Losada has made during that game. There was quite a few substitutions, some very interesting substitutions. Also, Yves talked about Zachary Broguillard. He came in as a
Yeah.
forward, which is
Hmm.
very very weird at
Yeah.
the end, at the 83rd minute. But there were other substitutions before. So at the 63rd minute, it was Jules-Anthony Vilsan that came in for Kwadwo Opoku. That was Victor Wanyama that came in at the 72nd for Samuel Piet. Matko Miljevic also coming at the 70 seconds for Bryce Duke. And of course, we talked about Zachary Boviar coming in for Chinon so forth. Let's talk about the substitutions and how well they did, because I feel that sometimes when you do substitutions, you're always afraid that you're going to lose in quality. I didn't feel that way when I watched the game yesterday. Do you agree with that, Elias?
No, I agree with that completely, right? I think they maybe lacked a little bit of decisiveness, I mean, which led to missing these chances and everything like that. But I think that everybody that came on as a sub had a decent game, right? Even Matko, who I wouldn't say he missed that
Even
chance because
Matko.
the pass was, well, no, because Matko missed that chance, right, where Bourguiba kind of played him in,
Did
but the pass was
he?
a bit behind him.
No,
The
he
pass was
didn't
a bit
miss that
behind
chance.
him.
The pass. The pass was
Yeah, the
bad.
pass,
Yeah, I would be
the
inclined
shot
to
wasn't great
agree with
either,
Hady on this one.
but like
It
because
was
it
a
was a
tough
chance and
shot.
he missed, right? It was exactly so he made the most of a unfortunate situation, but I feel like everybody kind of had a solid shift. Nobody was really like, oh, I see why they didn't start. And Zachary Brogiard coming in as a forward kind of makes you wonder, like, was what was that all about? You have forwards out there that can play as wingers and that can play that
Mhm.
in that space, and he picked it right back. So it was kind of just like interesting. But Brogiard has had a couple of shifts as a more attacking minded wingback and almost as a forward, right? So
Mhm.
I wasn't too surprised. I just think that it was a bit of a
It was
warning
ballsy.
shot to some of the
It,
forwards.
but it was
Maybe
also ballsy from
It was
Hernando
also ballsy,
to
very,
do
yes,
that.
very.
but we were talking about that a couple weeks ago. That Lasada hadn't trusted his gut with substitutions as
Yeah.
much, and this was a game where he was like, "These are the subs I want to make, and I'm making them," and they all paid off. So again, hopefully this is a sign that Hernando Lasada is back to making these substitutions. That he's willing to take risks with the people he subs on, because more often than not they work out.
Mhm.
Yeah. We'll talk about the strikers a bit later in the second segment. Uh, of course, 2-0 win. Last question about that game to you, Eve. We beat Charlotte, and I'm sorry, but we were so much better than them.
Yeah.
When you look at the standings and you see them, right now we're just 3 points ahead of them. Do you feel that we should be higher up in the standings because of the way we played yesterday,
No.
or do you feel that it just was one week where CF Montreal showed the spell of dominance against a team that's it's equal?
No, I think Montreal is about where it should be in the standings. Obviously, let's face it, Montreal had the chance to gain some points at home, and they dropped two goose eggs, really. And with such a lack of offensive ability against teams that are in the playoff race at present. So no, for me, no, I don't think that for me, a run of just about close to five full matches without scoring, for me that's not an anomaly. That's like a trend. So you can't necessarily say like a team is better than 4 to 5 results in a row.
Do you agree with
Well,
that,
it's
Elias? I
also
see, I see, I see you making a face. So let's go.
We love faces. It's all
the biggest
good. You do
difference
it.
between
You get
Montreal
your
and
face up.
Charlotte is the road, right? I just looked it up now because I was pretty sure. And if you give Montreal Charlotte's road form, they are right behind Nashville in fifth place. The
Yeah.
Oh
Charlotte has
wow.
7 more road points in as many games. So you give them Charlotte's road form, and they are not only in a playoff position, they are comfortably in a playoff position. And
Mm,
we are not having
that is
half the
interesting.
conversations we're having. So that is again, Charlotte has their own problems, a lot more problems than Montreal
Oh
currently
my
has.
God,
But
yes.
the one thing they absolutely have going for them is that road form that's keeping them in competition
That
with a
is
lot of the teams that are probably at a higher level than them. So, I mean, I knew that Charlotte had a better road from the Montreal, but just realizing that Montreal could be in fourth or fifth place because they'd be equal on points with Nashville. Fourth or fifth place is kind of jarring, but yeah, that's the biggest difference. Montreal on the road has 5 points. Charlotte has 12.
that is
Yeah.
legit
So
shocking.
Now, I agree with both of you, and I think that at the beginning of the year I said that Montreal would finish between the 8th and the 10th position. They're right now in ninth position, so they're exactly
I
where they
think they're
were
in
supposed.
10th right now, actually.
Now they're in ninth.
I'm looking at it
really,
right now. They're in ninth. They're in 10th.
You sure?
yeah,
Because
because
like
I'm on MLSsoccer.com.
weird. Okay.
then yeah,
Was there a game today? Because yesterday night I
No.
checked and it
DC
was there
United
were
has
nine.
30 points and Montreal has 29.
Okay, they're 10th then. I was sure I saw a ninth. But yeah, okay, so they're in 10th position right now, and they're exactly where they should be. I completely agree with that. But I think that if we didn't have that much injuries and that much call-ups to national teams, I think they would be a bit higher. They would have won. Maybe they wouldn't have had those 4 games without a goal because I think that that absence in the midfield of the injury of Chouanière and Mathieu and Samuel Piet, the fact that Bryce Duke didn't have that support that brings Mathieu Chouanière. And Hernandez Sada talked about it in his presser, and he's like, you see Bryce Duke as a number 10 and Mathieu Chouanière and Samuel Piet as a double pivot, but that's not true. They changed roles quite a few times during the game, and at the beginning of the game, I was playing with 3 forwards, with Ariel Lassiter playing as a left winger, and the other 2 playing as strikers in
Oh,
a certain
okay.
way. And for him, is like, and we were playing with a back 4, and I was like, when you think
Did the
about it,
defenders know that? Because they looked like a back 3 back there.
not really, because when you think about it, Corbo was playing completely on the left hand side, like close to the sideline, and he was right, but like for moments of the game, not for like 10 minutes, for maybe a minute or two, it happened quite often where Ariel Lassiter was really pushing a lot more forward than he used to, and that's interesting to have that tactical adaptability. That your team understand that tactical those tactical changes and adapt very well to those tactical changes within the game. So maybe that's something that we're going to see a bit more from Lozada's team. And I feel that right now Lozada is trying to innovate in a certain way with his tactics. Let's wait and see if it works.
Yeah.
It used to work a lot for Wilfried Nancy, but let's see. Let's see if it's going to work, if he's going to try other things in the next few days, in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. So that's it for CF Montreal, the first game. Let's dive into the questions. We have a couple of questions on CF Montreal first. So let's start with
Simple Guy?
Yeah.
Or did you have an order?
No, I didn't have
Okay.
an order. Let's go with Simple Guy. A comment that turns into a question. Does yesterday's win mean there will be no other moves? What say you? In my opinion, we still need help in midfield. What do you think, Elias? You're next.
If Losada really is buying into this 4-back, switching into a 5-back, and kind of this fluidity, then I don't see the need for a left back, as it were, because Ariel Lassiter does do that hybrid, rather well. I think that maybe reinforcing that if Quizera isn't maybe at the level needed, he was kept off the team again. Then maybe you can go and look in for as a substitute, or maybe someone that brings some competition. I don't disagree with Simple Guy's comment about the midfield, but I also don't agree. I think that when healthy, that midfield is as solid as you need to have a good run in MLS. What I do think they need is to have a team that's less injury prone. Again, because if Samuel Piet is good for one more or less substantial injury per season, that is still a decent amount of time that he misses, and you could see how badly he's missed when he's back and everything's going so well. So I don't think there's any one big problem area right now, but again, this is with the rose-colored lenses of a win. I still think they need a super reliable number 9 if Ramon Kyoto isn't coming back. And I think that is probably the biggest gaping hole. But again, they just came off a 2-0 win, so you see everything with rose-tinted lenses. And
a little bit, yeah.
And again, I kind of agree with Simple Guy, but not 100%. Like, I agree with him that we need better quality in midfield. Completely agree. But in order to do that, you need to make sure that some players leave.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
For me, Ahmed Hamdi, Matko Miljevic have to leave in order to bring someone in the midfield. Or else you're just having too many midfielders for just 2 or 3 or 4 spots, depending on what the tactical formation you choose. And that, of course, creates a bit of unrest in the dressing room. And that's not what you want to bring to that team, because it's a team that's very young, and a bit of unrest can be very, very bad for a young team. So I agree with you, Simple Guy, bit more quality, but we need to get rid of some players first. I don't know if you want to add something regarding that.
No,
move on to the next one.
Hady, I completely agree with you. Yeah, need more quality, but we can't add another body reasonably.
Good. JF question is for you, Eve. We can go ahead with him. Will Kyoto play another minute with CF Montreal? What's your pronostic for a Leagues Cup prediction for Leagues Cup? Montreal finishing first in his group. Yes, for me. That's a good segue into Leagues Cup, and I think Emil has a question on Leagues Cup too. So go ahead, Eve.
First question regarding will Romel Kyoto play another match for Montreal? I am going to say yes, but single digits. Like
Okay.
you can count on two hands the number, maybe even one hand, but definitely max two hands.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's not very hard because we already played 21 games, 23
No, but I'm
games.
saying he's not right. But then now there's like a month break, right, until MLS picks up again, and then there's the last, what? Hold on, how many games have they played? I already forgot.
11.
They have 11
So
games
there's 11 more games to play. No, okay, fine. I'll say you can count the number on one hand.
Okay, good.
I'm willing to put myself out there.
That's a bit more. That's a bit more ballsy. Okay, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, I mixed up the no. I mixed up.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm joking. It's okay.
All good.
And what do you think about the Leagues Cup? Are they going to top the group? Let's remind
No.
our listeners. We have a group of three: Pumas, DC United, CF Montreal. CF Montreal playing the two games at home against Pumas and DC United.
Yeah.
No?
I think no. I have a sneaking suspicion that Hernan Lozada might use this to maybe experiment a little bit with changing up his formation, maybe bring in a few players who haven't seen quite as much time, because as well the Liga MX teams who are going to be playing in this competition, they're not in like season form. They're in preseason mode, right?
Yeah.
So it's like not necessarily, I guess, as competitive as it would be, say, in the instances of like Champions League or what have you. So I feel like there's a little bit of wiggle room. I feel like he's going to experiment a bit and test out maybe some unfamiliar lineups, some unfamiliar formations. And I don't see them topping the group, honestly, because we also have the highly pragmatic Wayne Rooney to contend with.
Okay, that's very interesting. Elias, do you agree with what Eve says?
Yes and no. I do think he's going to get a bit experimental, but it all depends on the first game.
Okay.
If they win the first game and have a really good chance of making to the next round, then I think he will maybe try a 4-back. He'll maybe kind of try and spice things up, because, again, they are both playing both games at home. And the game against DC United, if it wasn't for a monstrous brain fart in the first 30 seconds, that's at the very worst a draw. So that all kind of switched when that all kind of like was flipped on its head when he moved to a 4-back and he had 3 attackers and 2 wingers. And I think that, if they do well against, they're playing Pumas first, so if they do well against Pumas and they win against Pumas, we could see him try a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 or something with 4 defenders and wingers, and maybe give a chance for Opoku to play at his preferred position. So I agree with Eve in that he'll probably try something new, but that only if they win their first game. Okay. And it puts them in a really good spot, because, again, you do really want to win your group, because your group will be playing against Philadelphia's group, and the only way that
I don't want to play Philadelphia.
The only way Montreal don't play at home is if they play either LA or Philadelphia, because they're the only 2 teams that finished above them in last year's Supporter Shield race. So if Montreal win the group, and it's very likely that Philadelphia do as well, they don't have to play Philadelphia yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that is also something that has to be considered.
Well, I just playing the long game.
So yeah, I think that when it comes to tournaments like this, where there's only 2 games, you don't really have a prolonged group stage. You have to kind of play a bit of chess, especially because it's going to be now it's going to be a relatively congested month if they get some games going, and also the fact that if you lose in the first round, you have a month of practice and no games, which also really sucks.
Yeah, it's not a good thing to have in the middle of the season, for sure. And let's move on because Eve talked a bit more about I don't know who's making that noise, but
That was me. I'm sorry, I dropped
okay,
something.
yeah, no worries. So Eve, you answered Emil's question at the same time. So Lalada said that he wants to win trophies, but how should CF Montreal approach the League's Cup? Ideally, should we play to win, or rather only to train and prepare for the end of the MLS season? So if you said that he has to try a few things, that's how they're going to treat the competition. I think that CF Montreal, the way that they're looking at the club, they think that playing at home is so important that they need to win games. So looking at the club philosophy, independently of what Losada wants, I think Gabriel Gervais, Olivier Renard, Joey Saputo, everybody wants to win all the games at home as much as they can, obviously. So
Yeah.
I don't think it will be accepted in a certain way if Hernan Lozada tries too many funky stuff at home. So I really feel we're going to see they're going to try to win all the home games. Now, I don't think they're going to go very far in the competition. And I don't think if they play one road game, they're going to say, you know what, that's
It's
where
over.
he's going to try something. That's where he's going to try something a bit
Yeah.
funky, but not at home. I don't think so.
Again, the only two road games are against Philly or LA. Everything else is at home.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So we'll see. We'll see what's gonna happen. But as long as we play at home, I'm pretty sure that Hernando Sada is not gonna try anything weird. So we'll see. We'll see what's gonna happen. It's gonna be interesting to see CF Montreal play against a Mexican team.
Yeah.
And also, you said Eve that they're in the preseason, so maybe that's good for us. And for once, it's us playing in season and them playing out of the season. So that's
Revenge is a dish best served cold. Except we don't really play Pumas. I can't think of the last time Montreal's ever played Pumas. Not since I started watching the team.
No, I don't think so either.
So it's more of like an overall revenge, I guess. Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll see a Sasaputo with Canadians supporting CF Montreal more than Pumas supporters. Because every time we play a Mexican team, there's so much Mexican support. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll see more CF Montreal supporters there. That's for the 3 questions. Let's move along to our next segment.
They have never played each other ever, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So
at least recorded, they have not played each other.
Good. So let's move around with the second subject. Who's the best 2 striker to play in Hernan Lozada's system? Who wants to start?
I don't.
You don't.
I will go first.
Well, no, because I have all these caveats, and I have all these if, then, when, then,
exactly. Blah blah blah. You have to give us. What I want is the 2 names, and then why. That's it. I don't want what if and no, just 2 names. Okay. You have to take a decision.
I don't think you've ever been inside my brain, Hady, because my brain is only does that.
I think if you fed
organized and give me 2 names.
I think if you fed Hernan Lozada truth serum and asked him that question, he would not be able to answer.
Right.
But
you're not.
I kind of talked about it before, but he's going to be rotating.
I'm writing it down.
You're not the head coach. You're not Hernan Lozada. Yes. You're a podcaster asking your opinion, so you have to choose. Here to
talk shit. This is not against any specific team. I think the duo that would get the best results in the current system with the form of the players, I think it would be Mason Toy and Mahalo Opoku. I think that they cover enough bases and complement each other well enough and are both good enough with the ball that they're not a bad matchup against any team. It may not be the perfect matchup against specific teams, but I don't think they're a bad matchup against any team. Okay. That is the most politically correct I can make my answer.
You want me to go ahead, Eve, before
no, I'll do it. I'll do it. Thank you. And that's
I just got something diabolical cooked up that he wants to say.
He's doing something ridiculous. Okay, so obviously, I feel like it's a little bit tinged when it comes right on the back of a win. but I think Opoku is probably the closest to a finished player among the strikers, aside from Mason Toy, who obviously has had his number of setbacks, and Romel Kyoto, who is mid-injury crisis right now. But I think, like, compared to all the other strikers in the roster, he's like the furthest along in his development. So I think he is definitely someone who you would want to have out there for sure as a starter. And then to complement him, I do like Mason Toy's technical. And see, I'm sorry, I can't not go through the motions. I'm sorry, it's just my little brain. I do like Mason's Toy technical ability a lot. He brings a lot more than just shooting the ball on the net. But I feel like a better compliment to him is in fact Chinonso Ofor, because Chinonso Ofor, what he lacks in technical ability, we've talked a million times. He can drop deep, he can hold up the play. He has a dismal first touch, but sometimes that comes off anyway and turns into a goal, bless his heart, or sometimes it deflects into his partner into a goal. And so I feel like they are very complementary in that regard. So I'm gonna go with those two in the current circumstances.
It's weird because you remember a few weeks ago, and I said that Chinonso Ofor and Sunusi Ibrahim, I wanted to see them together,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what I wanted at one point. But I feel that Kwadwo Opoku is that player that is a finished product, a finished Sunusi Ibrahim in a certain way, where he's the same type of player, but a bit more mobile and a bit more playing, behind the defense a
Mhm.
bit more than Sunusi. That's what I would have liked from Sunusi. So we're getting a better player than Sunusi Ibrahim, and for me, I completely agree with Eve. For me, it's that the duo that should be starting for CF Montreal. I really like Mason Toy. I'm not saying he's not good. I'm just I feel that he's having trouble finding his form again, and that's been a while now. And I feel that maybe a change of scenery could be good for him. So let's wait and see. Let's wait and see what's going to happen. Maybe that will help Simple Plans
Simple guy.
ambition. Simple Plans. Simple guys'
You're aging
ambitions.
yourself, Hady.
Yeah, sorry. Simple, simple guys' ambitions of recruiting someone. So if you're able to trade, for Mason Toy and one or two midfielders, maybe you're going to be able to bring a couple of more midfielders and with a bit more quality in the squad. So I'm Team Eve on this one. So
Oh
Shinonso
my
4 and
goodness.
Kwadwo Opoku as starters. But I don't hate your idea, Elias. So let's wait and see what Hernando Sada will choose. We're going to know more in the next few weeks.
Mhm.
Moving on to the next segment. And
Oh,
I'm going to
I'm so
start
excited.
the segment. I'm going to start the segment by someone that we really, really, really love. And that's Robbie. And we've been forgetting his question in the last couple of weeks. And
Yes,
we want to
indeed.
apologize, but this time we're going to answer your question, Robbie. We're going to talk about Canada in the Women's World Cup starting the 20th of July. So in 4 days, it's going to be very exciting. And Robbie asked us a question. So go ahead, Eve. Will the women's team make it a trifecta and have trouble scoring two at the World Cup? First of all, your question is outdated because CF Montreal scored two goals
That's our
yesterday.
fault.
That's our fault. Second of all, who
I don't
wants to
think they're going to
answer
have trouble.
first?
No, I don't think. No. In the group
They
stage,
better not.
certainly no. Obviously, if you come up, against some of those more imposing defenses like a France or a US or an England, because they just played a friendly to a 0-0 draw against England. In the later stages, yeah, perhaps, but no, in the group stage, I don't see too much issue.
Yeah, and Tate saying a chance for a trophy. Uh, are you willing to go that far, Elias, to add on Robbie's question?
I think. Look, I mean, we had this conversation during the Gold Cup, right? Anything is possible, but if Canada struggles to score in a group like this, which is challenging but definitely suits their play style and is a very strong matchup, I think that there's real concern because they have so much firepower going into this tournament, and so many players that not just firepower, but players that are in really good form are coming off of one of the best seasons of their careers.
Hmm.
So I think that everything is set up for offense to not be the problem. But again, we saw during the Shibboleth's Cup that this team doesn't really have their attacking identity nailed down.
Agreed.
They don't know exactly what formation. They don't know exactly how to blend the profiles. They're not sure because there's such a wide variety of styles and of builds in this team in the attack. So I think that once they kind of get that narrowed down, there won't be a problem with offense just because of how much talent there is there. But the question is, how quickly can they figure that out and how quickly can they get that going? And if it's right off the bat, if it takes a game, but I think there shouldn't be a problem with their scoring, with their offense in this tournament.
Yeah, and I don't think either that we're gonna have a problem scoring. Are we gonna score a lot of goals? Maybe not, but I think that
Hmm.
that team has what it takes to score. And I love the roster. We talked about it even
Yeah.
last week. I really love the mix of experienced players and young players chosen by Beth Friesman. You can add a bit of of innocence and youth with Olivia Smith. You can add a bit of experienced players with the Chloe Lacasse, Christine Sinclair, and those players. So you have everything you need to score goals, and sometimes that's what you need. You need different profiles. You need different kind of you need
Yeah.
crazy girls. You need you need calm girls. You need a bit of everything, and I feel that in that squad you have that bit of everything.
Hmm.
So hopefully we'll see that during the World Cup. But in order to score and in order to know how to score, you need to know your opponents, right, Eve? So we
Absolutely.
we are
What a
playing. So
segue.
let's look at that group. So we are
What a
playing
segue.
against three teams, and those three teams are Australia, the Republic of Ireland, and Nigeria. Um, we're playing in Group B. Just to let you know, if with the first two of the group will qualify to the next round, and they'll play. Of course, if you're winner of Group B, you're playing against the runner-up of Group D, and if you're second of Group B, you're playing against the winner of Group D. So let's look at Group D. We have England, Haiti, Denmark, and China. So most probably it's going to be England and China moving on in the next round. So it's so important for Canada to be playing against to go through the first the group
Yeah.
phase. That's going to be very very important. But also it's going to be important to maybe win that very exciting game against either China or England, depending who they're facing against, because
Absolutely.
the two are very, very strong teams, and that would make a statement, and that will make Canada directly as a team to watch in the following few games. So let's
Hmm.
look at opponents, Eve. Let's start with Nigeria. Go
So they're
ahead.
the
So
first opponent of Canada.
they're the first opponents of Canada. So Nigeria, they're called the Super Falcons. So just for the people that don't know, Nigeria for the men's, they're called the Super Eagles. So the women's Super Falcons. Five things to know about Nigeria. First of all, African champions 11 times out of 14. They beat New Zealand, the other co-host, in Turkey on April 11th 3-0, which is a very, very big score. They're
Hmm.
40th in FIFA ranking, but the first African country. Onomi Ebi is a center back, and you see a picture of her here on our slide. She's 40 years old. 40 years old, and she'll be, of course, starting for the Nigerian team. Head to head against Canada, Canada's leading 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, and the next game is on July 20th at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What do you make of Nigeria, Elias? Because we didn't hear you yet about the
Hmm.
women's.
Oh,
The
I'm so
women's.
ready. Okay, it's
No,
okay. I'll resist.
Sorry, Eve, but like,
it's
yeah.
it's a very interesting opponent, right? And I think that every single opponent in their group has their own challenges, but just the fact that, like you said, right, 11-14 wins, you enter tournaments with this mentality, with this winner's mentality, and this confidence that is should not be overlooked. It doesn't the gulf in FIFA rankings does not matter, right? Once you get on the field,
Mhm.
and the fact that they've been in these high pressure situations, and the fact that they've been in finals and have won these games so many times and so frequently, you build this bond, and this bond is forged in all this drama. So I think that it really is going to be a test for Beth Priestman to kind of balance the experience with the youth, because if she picks too many of these young players that haven't necessarily been in situations like this, and they come up against a team that knows how to control the emotion and the tempo of a game, then they could be in for a very big surprise, and would might have to make some adjustments when they were not thinking they would have to. So I think that Beth Priestman is probably going to counter that with an experienced side, and maybe favor people or players that have been with the team longer, that have been with the national team longer, and maybe just add a bit more, have a bit of an older squad than we would maybe have for a strongest 11, if you will, just to kind of counteract just how united this Nigerian side looks, and they've been, in such good form.
Yeah,
Um, if you look at that team, Canada should win against that team, but there's still a team to be cautious about because they're a
absolutely.
very good team, either, right?
No, absolutely. And I think it's very much a side that people could potentially be sleeping on. But I know you mentioned Onomi Ebi for sure.
Yeah,
However, and she's their captain, but they also have Asisat
of
Oshoala, who
course,
plays for them, who plays with freaking Barcelona, which is one of
of
the
course.
best teams in the world. And
The best.
if I
No, not the
with
best select.
soccer, no, women's soccer, I think Leon's got that one unlocked for at least another little
Unbiased
while.
opinion, unbiased
Oh
side.
yeah, no, completely unbiased, completely unbiased. um, no, they have players who play kind of all over the world, and I find that to be kind of an interesting experience when you bring together a national team that has players playing in so many different leagues, because you get a little bit of the different styles of each of those leagues, and there are a lot of pros that go with it. Unfortunately, it means there might not be as much synchronicity as if they were playing regularly in the same leagues together, but it also means that there's a lot of varied experiences that they're bringing to that team. Additionally, I think they also have a nice mix of age ranges in their squad. Obviously, you mentioned Ebby a little while ago, but they have some 19-year-olds, 21-year-olds, young, so also young up and coming players. So no, for me overall, this is kind of like a very dark horse team, a sleeper team, if you will. And if you don't take them seriously, I think absolutely you will be punished.
Yeah, exactly. It was too easy to present Oshuala as the
You're
favorite
right.
because I knew you were going to talk about her. So yeah. So no, a very very interesting striker, and she's going to be a threat for the Canadian
Hmm.
defense. So we're going to have to be very vigilant in order to beat that Nigerian side. But if things are normal, if things go the right way, Canada should win that game. It shouldn't be a problem to win that game. But let's look at that head to head. We talked about that head to head here, and that's what scares me because Canada has played against Nigeria a couple of times, as I said. So Nigeria, the only game Nigeria won against Canada was at the World Cup in 2011. All
Right.
the other games where Canada won or drew were friendlies. So
The only
during
competitive
the
results.
only competitive result is a loss for Canada against Nigeria on a 1-0 win. Hopefully, we'll learn from that mistake. Yes, it's been a while, but still, history has a tendency to repeat itself. So
Mm,
hopefully, it will
yeah.
not repeat itself this time.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a small sample size to judge on, and more than a decade later.
yeah, but still, you have to be careful. You have to be careful. And if you look at the last game they played, it was a
Oh
2-2 draw.
yeah. Oh, I
So,
recall it
so
vividly. Yeah.
exactly. So it was a 2-2 draw. So let's not let's not think that it's an easy thing and an easy target. It's not going to be an easy target. Nigeria is going to be a very strong squad to compete against. Let's move on with the second team that we're going to face, and that's of course Ireland, the newcomers, first time qualifying for the World Cup. They're called the Girls in Green. Obviously, you all know why. Um, let's talk about their friendly games against Colombia on July 14th, so last Friday. I don't know if you heard about that friendly,
Yeah.
but it was canceled because the Irish players felt that the Colombians were a bit too aggressive and very aggressive. One player was sent to the hospital, and they decided they were like, you know what? They seem to be, gunning for us and just wanting to hurt us. So let's just take a step back and just prepare for the World Cup another way. And that could be very concerning because you didn't have that friendly game before the tournament, and also the head coach of the Irish team said that the players feared for their bodies and for their security, and that's not something that you want to feel ahead of a World Cup, which is very concerning in my opinion. You have two players that are so important for their Irish team, Katie McCabe and Dennis O'Sullivan, both of them playing in England. Katie McCabe, I said Dennis, but I think it's Denise if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
it
Sorry
is.
about that. So yeah, they're so interesting. Very good players with McCabe playing for Arsenal and O'Sullivan playing for. I'm looking at my notes. She's playing for North
Also,
Carolina Courage in the NWSL. Um, so they're gonna be the main threat. They're 22nd in FIFA ranking, head to head against Canada. Only one game played, and Canada won it. It's a 1-0-0 head to head against Ireland. And of course, the game is going to be played on the 26th of July at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking at the Irish team, Eve, are
mhm.
you a bit more confident?
I'm inclined to say yes, because obviously this is their first Women's World Cup, and it's a monumental occasion for them, right? It's huge, and certainly I'm 100% confident every single player on that roster wants to really make a mark, really overcome the kind of Cinderella status that they have coming into this tournament. However, it's a massive occasion, and we've seen that before. We've seen it with our Canadian national teams. Sometimes the size of the occasion gets the better, of a group, because it's your first time, you haven't had this experience before. Obviously, I'm really unfortunate to hear that some of the players were injured and a little bit shaken up after the friendly that
Yeah,
had to be abandoned. Undoubtedly, that's not going to help things for them either. Um, but they've also, to me, they have had some interesting results. I mean, they played the US back in April. They did lose both matches, but one of those was a very narrow 1-0 loss, which, let's face it, I mean, Canada struggles to get that kind of result against the US. um and so, no, for me, it's an interesting team. I think probably if I had to put my money on it, I would have this team unfortunately falling at the bottom of the group, just by virtue of their lack of exposure to this level of competition.
I agree, Elias. How important is experience on the world stage for before the World Cup, the 2023 World Cup, in your opinion?
I think we're about to get a front row seat to it. If I'm being completely honest with you, I think that the energy and the novelty of your first World Cup is it definitely does account for a certain boost. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a bit of a harsh reality because men's and women's tournaments, we've seen teams, for the first time ever, for the first time in a long time, kind of crash out once the high of actually being there settles, and they have to now deal with the minutia of an actual tournament and not just the qualification process. And I think that's going to be kind of a harsh reminder for Ireland. But again, it's it's the first step, right? This is the first step towards growing your program. This is what we saw with Canada in the World Cup on the men's side. This is what we saw with countless other countries. Is that you cannot take not doing well this tournament, especially in the way you don't do well, as the end all be all. So I think that
Mhm.
Ireland, I agree with Eve, and that Ireland will be bottom of the group. And I think that any points or any kind of positives they can take away from this, you take it. But I don't expect much more from them.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that they're going to finish at the bottom of the group. I think the first three teams are a bit better than the Irish side. Now, don't forget, Ireland is 22nd, Nigeria is 40th in FIFA ranking, which is very weird when you say Ireland's going to finish last, but Nigeria is going to finish third or maybe second. That's a bit weird, but. Let's wait and see if that is going to happen. And let's look at that third team, which is Australia.
Absolutely.
Australia.
So, Australia is the co host of the 2023 World Cup. Five things to know about Australia. First of all, they're called the Matildas, and that's after a song called the Waltzing Matilda, which is very, very known, of course, in Australia, and um, one of the traditional songs and
Mhm.
musics that every households know. Um, what's important and the players that are important, it's very simple to say Samantha Kerr, because she's not the only one that's important in that team. Sam Kerr and all the others. I'll present just Sam Kerr and I'll leave a bit to the others, to Elias and to Eve.
Mhm.
Uh, just Sam Kerr. I'm just going to tell you just a few things about her. She has the most goals in a one single FIFA Women's World Cup with four in 2019. She's the only football player to win the Golden Boot in three different leagues and continents, winning in Australia, winning in North America, and in Europe. She's the first female football player to be nominated for the Ballon d'Or, the first Australian female football player to be named in the Ballon d'Or, and she the first female to appear on FIFA, on a FIFA game. So if you look at the FIFA game of 2022, she's on the cover of the FIFA video game, which is very important, and it talks a lot of how
Mhm.
great and important Samantha Kerr is. Australia is 10th in the FIFA ranking. They just defeated number five France in a 1-0 win in front of 50,000 people on Friday on the 14th. And the head-to-head against Canada, Canada is still winning. 3 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. And the next game against Canada is on July 31st at 6 a.m. Elias, when you look at that Australian team, how pumped are they going to be for that first game, knowing their first game at the World Cup it should be played in front of 80,000 people?
I haven't dropped a hot take this episode, so I will. Australia will top the group.
Oh wow, what a hot take!
Australia will top the group.
Uh, I can see
Um,
it.
I think the home field advantage, the moment, and just the fact that Sam Kerr is, especially with Alexia Putellas being out with an ACL injury, is the best player in the world right now. I think it's a perfect storm for Australia right now, and I could totally see them topping the group. But not just the fact that Sam Kerr is in this team, but they have so many, not just role players, but really players that have shone in their position in a lot of WSL players, a lot of players that are playing to trade in England and doing remarkably well with it.
Mhm.
Also, one of the best women's teams at Lyon, I believe it's Ellie
Ellie
Carpenter's
Carpenter,
playing at
yeah.
Lyon now. Um, so I think that this team is so much more than Sam Kerr, and I think that this entire tournament is really everything is culminating at the right time for them, and so I do think that they're going to top the group. I expect a dogfight between them and Canada. It's going to be such an interesting challenge, and I really don't know which way it's going to go. but I do think that Australia will top the group. I think that they're going to. I think that they're really going to capitalize and make this moment count, and that is my hot take of the episode.
Well, I know I'm going to be setting my alarm bright and early. I can tell
Yeah.
you that.
I'm just not going to sleep.
For this one. Okay, you do your all-nighter. No, for me, this Australian team is like Elias said, they obviously have a massive home field advantage, and it's been awesome to see the Australian population showing up to support their national team. Really pumped by that. A player I'm going to watch for Australia, though, is Mary Fowler. I don't know if you recall from when Canada played their friendlies against Australia, but she was so lively during that match. And,
She's only 20, yeah.
she is only 20, exactly. She's playing right now with Manchester City in the WSL, for anyone who's like not aware. She's very, very young, very, very, very talented. And I think this is likely going to be a breakout tournament for her. Anybody who's not been made aware of her presence in club football, I think they're absolutely going to be very aware of who she is by the end of this tournament. So she's kind of my player to watch, if you will, aside from Sam Kerr, of course, of Australia.
I think that team has almost a complete package. They're
Yeah.
great in goal, they're great in defense, they're great in forwards. Because you talked about Mary Fowler, we talked about Samantha Kerr, but let's not forget about Caitlin Ford.
True
Let's
story.
not forget about Courtney Vine. Let's not forget about Hady Rasso. All those players are really, really, really interesting up front. And we talked about the defense. Let's talk about you talked about Ellie Carpenter as a right wing back, but Steph Catley as a left wing back is so good also, the Arsenal player and the vice captain of that team. So there's so many good players with that team. If there's somewhere where they're not very, very, very strong, it's the midfield.
I'd be inclined to agree.
I'm not. I don't think they're not strong. They're very good, but
It's
not at the same level
Yeah.
as the rest of the team. The team is complete in defense. They're world class up front. They're world class in the midfield. That's where it could hurt. And we do have a very good midfield. So hopefully we'll be able to turn things around and make sure that the bold prediction of Elias doesn't happen. So Canada, you need to prove Elias wrong and
Please.
top the group.
I'd love it if they did. That's
No, but that's also very interesting. If you look at the times where Canada played against Australia, Canada was able to win 2 games in Australia against Australia. So when I said they're 3-1-1, did I say 3-1-1? Yeah, they're 3-1-1 against Australia. 2 of those wins happened
Like very
on Australian soil. And that's what's really interesting is that we're going to Australia, we're going to play against Australia, but we won twice there. And that's something that's going to be maybe worth a lot when we travel there. So anything else to add on the opponents, guys? Did I forget something? Did we forget to talk about someone?
No, I'm just so excited.
Yeah, we all are. So guys, tune in. First game, as we said, on the 20th of July, 10:30 against Nigeria. 20th of July is next Thursday.
Yeah.
Of course, guys, we will cover the Women's World Cup here on the Ball is Round. We'll have extensive coverage as much as we can. We'll make sure to put every resource available to present the World Cup as much as we can, for sure. So that's it, I think, for the episode. But we do have social media from you, Elias.
Mm-hmm.
It's the world of.
Didn't realize you were going to talk.
Oh,
I got all excited.
I didn't say anything of note. I'm just thinking out loud at this point.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. So I believe we have 5 tweets this week, if I'm not mistaken. Perfect. Alrighty.
All right. Yes, this is the first one from Rhonda Brownlee. This is, you have to squint a little bit to see, but only 2 of the 32 teams headed to the World Cup on July 20th don't have a domestic women's professional league. One of them is Canada. Now, considering that all Canadian women's national team has accomplished, let that sink in. Uh, this is Project 8 hasn't yet started, but just how important is it for Project 8 to not just be like a side project or a passion project, but actually cultivate and then house Canada's best players?
It's essential. Period. Like I understand that, I don't know necessarily, I want to be like in my lifetime, but I hope I live a long life. So I maybe saying in my lifetime's a little extreme. I certainly expect that Europe is still going to be regarded as the gold standard for quite some time to come, 100%. Like I don't see that changing anytime soon, regardless of the league starting up. That being said, it's an extremely important step in the developmental path for a player. When players who are 18 years old are having to choose, do I go NCAA, do I go pro? Oh, I don't know which one is right. And then they kind of make a decision, that really sets up the trajectory of the rest of their lives at such a young age. Like I know we all have to figure out what we're going to do with our lives, but when you're a professional athlete, your career is so much shorter that it's a little bit different, right? So for me, it's really, really important to have that available to Canadian players, to help them, on their path to finding the top levels of success. And hopefully one day it will be one of the top leagues in the world.
Yeah,
How
I
did you?
hope so too. And when you think about look at all the countries playing in the World Cup. I'm sorry, but with all my respect to those countries, some countries are so small and do not have enough resources, and we're still able to have a, a league for their women. And
Yeah.
why not us? I just can't understand it and can't explain it. And you look at countries, and again, I don't want to pinpoint and point and single out countries, but look at the list. I just let you look at the list, and for me, it's unconceivable, and it's not. I do not have the words anymore. But hopefully, we'll see Project 8. Bring that to Canada, and we'll see a lot more players, having the ability to really play professionally. I think that's the first step, a good step in the right direction, and we will not be regarded as a poor nation anymore on the soccer front.
Fingers crossed. Next up.
Moving on to the next one. Yes, this is from Frank Casimiro, translated from French. Toignard missed 4 games. CF does not score. He gets on 45 minutes, 2 goals. Camacho misses 5 games, concede 18 goals in those 5 games. Who's the real MVP? We've talked a lot about the impact of Mathieu Choignard. We've talked a lot about the impact of Jonathan Sirois. But at the beginning of the year, Rudy Camacho got a lot of criticism because the beginning of the season was not great. Is it time to give Rudy Camacho his flowers in the last 15, 20 games?
I would be. Okay, well, they played 21. They played 23.
No, but I'm
I already
including
forgot how
Canadian
many games they
Championship.
played.
They played
okay.
They played 28 this year, I believe, in all competitions.
Okay. So I was just thinking MLS. I was like, 15 to 20 is excessive. I think he's very important, and I think. I mean, is there a match where he's been absent where we haven't said that we've kind of felt his absence, or we haven't had something to kind of pick at? Whether it was, George Campbell attempting to play in central defense, like center of defense, or, whether it was kind of that lack of commanding presence back there. But I do feel like in every match where he was absent, you did end up a little bit feeling like he was missing.
I agree. Camacho is very important for the defense. Now, also, looking at stats that way for me is very simplistic. In my opinion, the players chosen by Hernando Sada to replace Rudy Camacho in the middle were not the right ones. So when you play with George Campbell in the middle of the back three, for me, it's not the right decision. It has to be Joel Waterman.
Who doesn't want to play that position?
But it has to be him.
So what about Gabriel Cuervo? We're veering off topic.
I feel like we're getting
Rudy Camacho. Rudy Camacho is a very, very, very important part of CF Montreal and a big part of the reason why they're winning football games. Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Yeah, agree. Next up,
yeah. This is from Derek Ray. A view from an outsider on the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which has its final tonight, actually. Aging the podcast, but the tournament really benefit from being played just once every 4 years, as with the Euros, being staged in a country other than the US, which would help the US experience something different. That's just my opinion. This year's Gold Cup did feel very weird, right?
Yeah, but that's
what do you guys think needs to be done?
That's the opinion of everybody.
Besides those two additions, Hady, what would you change in the Gold Cup to make it more relevant, more competitive, more interesting?
I know.
Eve? Yes.
Stop MLS. It's a continental competition where most of your players are coming from that competition. Stop MLS. Like, let it be the center stage. Let it be as important as it's meant to be. Like the Euros, the Euros are a huge competition, and all of the players from the top levels. For me right now, like, it's not taken as seriously because it's played in tandem with like the local game. And that bothers me deeply. And as well, it's difficult for the players who don't really get any respite. And I understand like the way the season is built right now, and especially with the addition of this Leagues Cup, it would be, I think, very, very, very difficult to reschedule all of those matches without having the players play three every 3 days all season long, which is not tenable. But I feel like having this competition go on in tandem with other things just makes it come off as less serious of a competition, because Copa America, the Euros, the Asian Cup, all of those, they go on like they are what's going on at the time. And so for me, I struggle to take Gold Cup as seriously.
I have two.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Eve. I agree with Eve. But it's not new, right? In Brazil, even during the World Cup, the clubs play still. It's not something that's only proper to MLS. It happens also in other countries.
It does happen, yeah, from time to time.
But I agree that could help. But I think what is more important is to have FIFA declare the Gold Cup as being international games. FIFA.
Agree.
And that's going to be very important, because right now the Gold Cup this year is not a FIFA sanctioned tournament. It is a FIFA sanctioned tournament, but it's not.
It's like it is, but it isn't.
No, the clubs do not have to release the players to their national teams, and most of the clubs are rejecting the call-ups of their players, and the same for players. They say, you know what? No, I do not have to be here. So they negotiate something with their head coach saying, you know what, is it okay if I miss this one this year? And I think that's not good. But
agree.
Going back to Derek Ray's tweet, those 2 points have to be put in place.
Yeah.
This is not normal. Like, playing in the US, we're done. It's done. It's been overplayed in the US. The US should not host any edition of the Gold Cup for the next 20 years. They had their chance. It's done. You do have quite a few countries that could host the Gold Cup. You have Canada, you have Mexico, you have quite a few countries you can go to.
You could team up like some of the countries that are located near each other.
That's exactly what I was going. Exactly. So you can team up. You can put two or three countries hosting the Gold Cup, and this is important. And every 4 years, just make it more interesting.
Well, yeah, again, like, I think
it's a bit too much.
That's the thing. Like, I think you take it more seriously when it happens less often as well, right? Because it's more of an event or an occasion. Every 2 years, like, oh, another Gold Cup.
Yeah.
No. Good thoughts, though. All right. Next up.
Moving on to the next tweet. Yes, so this is from Antoine Latran, Culture Soccer. This is pretty interesting statistics. Miami has lost 58 games since joining MLS in 2020. Messi has only lost 54 league games in his entire career. This comes from an Opta stats, so I don't know who at Opta came up with that number, but there's a raise because that's a crazy figure to research. But again, hats off to Opta stats. Normally find those. Hady, Messi, obviously, Messi is the greatest player of all time. Messi, and all the accolades and everything like that. Is that enough to kind of fix what's going on in Miami? And is that enough to make them maybe not a playoff contender? Because I think they may be a bit too far gone, but let's say a Leagues Cup contender.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You're scoring goals. And when you score goals, the other teams, the opponent is trying to defend a bit more. So, they're not attacking as much. And obviously, it creates that you get more opportunities and then you score more goals. And don't forget that Messi's is not alone. He's not coming alone. You have you have Busquets coming. You have Jordi Alba coming. You have and Jordi Alba is coming too. So you're adding so much to that team. Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say hi to Antoine. He's my, we were both of us managing Culture Soccer before I left the project. So very, very good guy, very nice guy. If you don't follow him, follow him. He knows everything about the MLS and he's very passionate about MLS. So very, very nice guy. So yeah, that's for me. Miami is gonna be a contender, and I would not be surprised if they make a push for the playoffs, even if they're maybe not gonna make it, but they're gonna make a push. And playing against Inter Miami is gonna be very, very tough going forward. Thank God CF Montreal have played them already twice.
Yves, we've seen big projects kind of implode, namely our
neighbors,
our
just
friends.
There.
Yes, just to the west of us. What are the odds that this is a situation like that, or is that really? Are the players coming too good for that to happen?
I mean, we've seen Montreal get it wrong with DPs like more than once now. We've seen Miami. We've seen Miami's DP plans fail. If you look at Gonzalo Higuain, that was not excellent. Blaise Matuidi, not good. Obviously, they also had some issues with just managing their books that led to some penalties for them. So, I'm not going to lie, it kind of feels like a gamble. Like, you feel like Messi, even if he were to come over at 50 years old, he'd probably make a dent in this league because he is that good. But when you look at, a Sergio Busquets, for me, like that does feel kind of like a retirement league move. Like that's the stage of his career that he's at, right? So, there is a part of me that wonders a little bit about Busquets, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I know he's a penultimate competitor. I know that he's won practically everything there is to win. But a part of me wonders how he's going to hold up with the specialties of MLS, the crazy travel, thank goodness they don't fly a coach anymore, because I'm sure that would have been jarring.
But Busquets is, his game is not about pace. He can play until he's 40 and he still be as efficient because he doesn't need to move that much to make an impact.
No, I agree with you.
He's that important. Now, of course, the traveling and all that stuff is going to be important, and it's going to be tough on him for sure. But he's just a year older than Messi. He's not that old either, right? No. And his game, it's not like it was like Pirlo came in or like Lampard came in, where pace and speed was so important in the way they play. No. It's not the same for Busquets. So I think that Alba is more that player that for me is a bit the retirement league,
on the bubble kind of.
It's a bit more difficult for him.
Yeah.
No, I don't think Busquets is.
Okay. I don't know. I just don't have a great feeling, and you know me. I will admit it if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and just a quick question like that. Rodolfo Pizarro, would you sign him as a DP? Because he got released. He got released.
Yeah, no, I know he did.
Bolstering.
I think there were rumors of him going out west to one of the LAs, no?
If you had a chance to sign him, that's my question. If would you sign him to CF Montreal?
No. I don't get good vibes.
If I knew that someone was heading out, someone like like you said, for example, Hamdi or David or something like that, and he's coming in, then yeah, I think that's someone that Bryce Duke can learn from, and that would be very interesting.
His stats aren't exactly like eye catching. Like if you just look at
it wouldn't be.
But he was playing at Miami. He was playing at Miami.
Well, Miami made the playoffs last year, although he didn't play. Yeah, he was on loan. Yeah. The year he was on loan, Miami made the playoffs.
I know Rodolfo Pizarro. He was with the Mexican national team. He was so good in the Gold Cup.
If they can get him on a bargain, I wouldn't hate that.
2019 was 4 years ago.
But he's 28, 29. He's young still.
I'm just saying a lot happens.
If they could get him for cheaper than what he was making at Miami, I don't know. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he would have been the best paid player in Montreal automatically. So if they can get him out of bargain, if they can get him around,
he's free.
A bit maybe more expensive than Wanyama. I'm talking about salary.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is he's free, so of course his salary is not going to demand a lot, right? So maybe a TAM player, and maybe not even a DP. So we'll see.
Yeah. Either way, I don't get good vibes.
So
if Olivier Renard wants to know what the vibes are, they're not good. All right. Next tweet.
Yes, next tweet. This is from Mathieu Lapierre. Yesterday I had immense Quebec pride. Pietin Chouanière bossing in the middle. Sirois clean sheet. Solid Saliba performance. Magnificent Vincent and hard-hitting ZBG. A lot of adjectives. But the impact vehicle of collective pride that might just be a...
Like the impact isn't like the impact.
Yeah, exactly. Basically driving collective pride. I mean, this is a case of a lot of homegrown and a lot of local players getting the job done. This is what we at the Ball Round call playing the youth. I mean, except for Simon Piet, who's not necessarily youth. But how did you guys feel, seeing that many homegrown players, not just there, but actually doing well and getting the job done?
I feel so much pride when I see this. For me, this is what I want to see from my football club, my local club. This is what I want to see. Of course, I would like to see stars and great players that come into my club. But what makes me a fan is seeing local players get their chance with my local club and be important and be decisive and have great games like all those players had yesterday. Mm-hmm. This makes me proud. When I look at that team, I find a bit of myself in them in a certain way, where for me, I feel that it's my peeps, right? I feel that I belong in a certain way, and this is what I want to feel when I watch CF Montreal. I want to feel that my friends, my I'm not gonna say my countrymen, but you know what I mean, are there on the pitch and representing my club. So very, very proud. Very, very proud.
Echo the sentiments. You have anything you feel the same way?
Yeah, nothing to add overall. Always so happy to see local players finding success and being able to play obviously in front of their family, their friends, their loved ones. I'm sure that's very meaningful for them as well on top of it, which is obviously just another nice layer to the story. Alrighty, shall we? I think we have a final tweet.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Elias. Yeah.
No, I just agreeing with you.
Okay,
Yes,
cool.
one final tweet. Yes, this is from Daniel Story. No spoilers, but this is the cleverest football ad I've ever seen. And yeah, we're
Yeah,
going to play that for you right here.
it's really
Definitely
cool.
watch this. This is an incredible ad. So here we go with that.
Ah, c'est passé.
Bravo.
Oui, c'est passé.
Oh oui.
Bien sûr que c'est passé.
Allez, une, deux.
Maintenant, faut que ça aille au bout.
Allez.
Ouais, c'est bien joué. Il y a
Allez,
plus qu'à la
allez,
pousser.
allez,
Il y a plus
allez,
qu'à la
oui,
pousser.
oui, oui, oui.
Voilà. C'est pénalty, ça.
Penalty.
C'est fait. Les Bleus qui reviennent dans le
Et
match.
on a encore le droit de rêver.
Avec le pied droit. Quel toucher de balle extraordinaire. Là, il y a un bon ballon de contre à jouer. Ah, bien fait le centre frais. Ah oui, bravo. Il donne direct. Il est direct. Le centre frais. Oh, le centre d'ailleurs. Ah, la tête piquée.
Oh, quel effet.
Superbe.
Elle est belle cette équipe.
Ouais, c'est ça. Le football qu'on aime. C'est ça. Les Bleus qu'on aime.
Yeah, every time I watch this video, I get goosebumps.
Same.
Yeah, it's
so
an
interesting
incredible
from the-
advert
from the FFF.
for
Oh
the
my-
French women's team.
So good.
Who,
Technology
again,
scares
are one
me.
of the favorite. But yeah, so what was your? Because I had this video spoiled for me, so I had heard
I
about what it
didn't.
was before I got to watch it. But what was your first reaction when you saw this?
I watched this like fresh. I had no idea what I was watching. And like I was kind of confused because it felt like some of those goals would have been like memorable. And so I was kind of like, I don't remember seeing this in any, like I felt like I would have seen it in the highlights. So I was like kind of confused. But okay, I am like number one, phenomenal. I love the message that they're conveying as well in this ad. Love it, love it, love it. I am petrified of the fact that they can create such identical replicas using technology. It scares me a little bit, but overall, phenomenally done. Phenomenal.
I watched
What do
it.
you
I
think-
wasn't
what do you think
aware
the message
also.
this sends? What message? do you think
I
this
love
sends?
it.
I mean, obviously the message.
Because I mean, I can only imagine like how hyped people got, watching the highlights of Kylian Mbappe, Antoine Griezmann, all those players, scoring goals and doing what they do best. And so I can imagine like lots of people who are, traditionally just following the men's team getting hyped up watching this highlight video. You know how you get hyped up watching your highlight videos? Maybe it's just me. And then so to really take that and turn it on its head, I felt was beyond intelligent. I love this ad because they completely left you in the dark and they said, actually, you weren't watching your favorite men's national team players. You were watching their women's national team counterparts. And so kind of if you suddenly felt like you wanted to treat it with derision, like how could you when you just sat through a minute of highlights and really enjoyed them?
Yeah, I like the message too. When I watched it, I wasn't aware also it was the women's team, but I felt something was off because with the movement, just because I watched too much soccer, I was like, kid, the movement seems off. There's something wrong. And I was like, are they? Is it? Maybe? And then when it happened, I was like, yeah, okay, good. Because I wasn't surprised because I was kind of expecting it when I watched it. Wasn't too sure. But no, very intelligent. I was a bit afraid of how it was going to be perceived. But I'm so happy that the response was so overwhelmingly positive. I love that. I love that. And you know what? I get as much excited watching a women's game than watching a men's game, because for me it's just the beauty of the sport, the beauty of soccer. That's so interesting, and I get as much excited when I was coaching young kids, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the ball is round, right? So it's as beautiful as it is.
Mhm.
So
I
yeah,
think that was the last
nice.
tweet that we have for you all, and a
Yeah,
great sentiment to end it on as we kick off the Women's World Cup. So go watch the game.
exactly.
Mhm.
You better.
Exactly. We can't wait. We can't wait for the beginning of the competition. Elias, Eve, thank you for being here and to be to give us give your thoughts about everything that's happening in Montreal regarding soccer, but also in Canada. I love it. I love having those discussions with you, and I hope that our listeners love it too. Um, Guys, I know you. I've seen so many people come and listen to us and watch our episodes. Just to let you know, we appreciate it. We love having you here. We want to tell you that our content is always going to be free. We're always going to try to do as much as we can with whatever we have. If you feel like helping us, promote the product, and also, of course, improve the product, we do have a Patreon page. You can go on our Patreon page and be one of our Patreons. Thank you for being here once again, and I'll see you next week for another episode of The Ball is Rock.